Good morning. So we are now going to do a demo of ASP.NET and Vue, and we're going to look more closely at components and how components bind to data. So the whole idea is you create a component in Vue, and then you can reuse that component. All right, so let's get started here. And I've already created my project. No need to walk through that again, but it was just creating a new project, selecting ASP.NET Core plus Vue, and it's created our server and our client. All right, so first let's just start this up, and we're going to look and see at what the components are that are being used here. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is refresh. All right, so we have components. This is a component, but that's not really a reusable component because that's a one-time only thing. But here we see documentation with an icon, tooling with an icon. That clearly is a component and it's being reused. So the whole idea is that we can then go in and modify that component and everything will they'll all use that same layout or component. All right, so let's get cracking here. So I'm going to put that off to the side for the moment. We're going to go in here. This is all happening on the client. So we're going into the source folder to, what do you know, components. All right, and so just to walk it from the top down, we have main, which fires up the app. So then we come over here and we look at the app and we can see we have a header, but then we have two components. We have hello world and we have the welcome. All right, so let's look at hello world. And this is where we have um, our grid. Now, does this really need to be a component? Like, is this reusable? Well, yes and no. In actual fact, you wouldn't use more than one Hello World component in an app because what's the point? But maybe you could if it's on different pages, right? And you wanted the same component to show up in two different places. And secondly, it puts it all in one file. I think they call it a single file component. And I like that because as you can see, it has the HTML wrapped inside this little template, and then it has the code that goes along with that, and it also has any styles that you want to scope to just this component. So I like the fact that it packages all of that up in one thing because if like later you go, okay, well, we need to change something, like for example, we want to change this, like right now, because I'm using a dark theme on Windows, this ends up being dark and this doesn't show very well. So if we come over here and go, okay, let's go take a look. We have the background here is white, and let's just change this to black. We come back over here to our window. And where did it go? Here we go. And we're going to notice we haven't saved it yet. And then we hit save. Of course, it popped it off the screen. But now we can see that every other row now is black. So so the point is that all of this CSS is right down inside this component. So it was really easy to find. So in other words, I didn't have to go find, like, okay, so where's my CSS? Okay, it's over here in public. As you can see, there's not even any CSS file in here, right? So there's a lot of script documents going on, but we didn't have to go look for our CSS. It was right there. All right, so let's go a little deeper into the other components here. which is the welcome. So we come back over here to our source, and now we have the welcome. And so again, this is a template. It's doing some importing for the different um, things that we need. Like we're saying, okay, import the welcome item from, welcome item dot view. So these are all views. And then also notice our language here is TypeScript. And so we can use TypeScript as we go along as opposed to JavaScript. Okay, so here again, we're using a template within a template. So we go, okay, this is the template, and this is called a slot. And that says, okay, what are you putting in that template, in that slot, right? So we're putting a documentation icon. So if we go down here, so if we look for our documentation icon, we can see that comes from icons over here. And then it's our icon documentation. Now, I find it strange that here it's called documentation icon, and here's called icon documentation. It's kind of backwards, if you ask me. Let's take a closer look at that. So, um, really, they just misnamed it, right? Because they called import documentation. So let's look at this. So within here, they're not giving it any name. So let's fix that. Let's see. Oh well, we can't fix it because we're running here. So let's just to show you an example. Let's rename this and go documentation icon. All right, and so now we can come back over here and we can say, okay, well, it's not an icon documentation. It's a documentation icon. All right, and we fire it up again. And I probably didn't actually even need to stop it and start it because we have Vite running. So in any case, as we can see, our icon still looks as we would expect it to. So again, um, we have these like higher level um, components, and then we have even smaller components that are all the way down here. But it's a real good way to, it's just like a unit of work, so to speak. Like, okay, you can work on this, I'm going to work on that, and it's all componentized. All right, so let's take a little bit closer look now. So that's our documentation item. So now let's take a closer look at our welcome. So, it has a class on there, and this is the slot, and that slot name is icon. So we know right away that, okay, in this particular part, it's going to take whatever this is, that slot is, and put it in there. So over here, we say, okay, well, inside this template, in the icon slot, we want to drop this right here, right? So we don't necessarily have to use that. We could just say this is my icon, and we're going to say that, and then we're going to bring it back over here. And as you can see, it was updated right away to put that in there, right? So of course that's silly to put just like a little bit of text, but just to show you don't have to put yet another thing. But then the point is that anything that goes inside this icon slot is going to show up over here, right? And so you could, if you wanted to, you could put so that's a slot, right? Which means something is being put inside there, but you could put something if you wanted it on everyone. You could put just like name, and we save. And we come back over here, and as you can see, this name is now a part of each and every one. So again, it's just an example of putting together a uh, component. All right, so let's save that back over there. All right, so now we have the next slot name here is heading. All right, so we come back over here to the welcome, and then we go, okay, here's another slot, and inside that slot, let's remove this. This is just a test there. So we have a welcome item, and we're using this template that's right there, and then we use another template which is documentation, right? So let's put our welcome item on the right just so we can more clearly see what's going on here. So we have our icon, which is right here. It goes in that slot. And then we have this slot called heading, right? And so this one is just text, right? Let's put it like this so it's more clear that it's yet another template, right? So basically, this little template says, okay, put it inside that slot. All right, so that's a welcome item, and then so we also have underneath the overall um, icon and heading, we have okay, this is what the text is, which then we see over here, views official documentation. So it's kind of like your body of your um, uh, uh, of your component. All right, and so that's our first welcome item, and then we have a second welcome item. So clearly now we're getting some good reuse out of it, and we have all of these different welcome items. So we've reused that component 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So that's very nice. All right, so that's an idea of how a template is working. And so the next step up from this is instead of hard coding all of this information like documentation, why not get it from a database? Because that's what you do in a real world application. It's very nice that, we've got some components going on here, but now let's bind it up to real data so you can have lists and it's a data driven application. But that's a topic for another video. All right. Hope you've enjoyed this. I certainly did. And we'll see you next time. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.